I was fresh out of high school and I was just like, I wonder what's out there.
It's been a tradition in my family, like for years and years and years.
My dad was Coast Guard, grandpa Air Force, great-grandpa Army. You know, just like, oh, I got to join now.
I was just interested on the career opportunities.
I want to go to college to be a lawyer, but I needed a way to pay for it.
I have kids here, my wife is here. I still have to defend this country. This is my home.
The United States military was formed in 1775, even before the writing of the Declaration of Independence. The United States military is a volunteer military, which means everyone in the military chooses to be there for any number of reasons: patriotic duty, earning paid college tuition, gaining technical skills. Some are just looking for a change. Regardless, they've signed up for this.
If you have a purpose, Americans generally will ride to the sound of the guns. They've got that heroic impulse. They wanted to fight if it was a mission worth fighting for.
You have some of the youngest demographic working on some of the most dangerous machinery and equipment in the most arduous environment on the planet. I will only go to war with people that want to be there.
In the modern era, there are a few ways to recruit people to the military. Some nations have mandatory military service, like Israel, Russia, South Korea, Mexico, and many others. Some have no mandatory military service, like Canada, much of Europe, India, or Australia. And some, like the US and China, have de jure compulsory service. Basically, the military is voluntary unless there is a draft.
We have had an all-volunteer force now for, 50 years. It aligns the risks people are taking, putting their lives on the line for the country, with the people most willing and eager to do it, and most proficient at the doing of it.
Why does the US have a volunteer military? Would mandatory service be better? How might the US react to a draft nowadays? Throughout history, military service was tightly bound to what place one held in society and the rights they could enjoy. In ancient Athens, citizenship was reliant upon military service. You weren't a full citizen unless you were prepared to fight, even bringing your own arms to battle. Large conscript armies were a cornerstone of the European feudal system and continued long after. The United States saw conscription at the state level during the Revolutionary War. However, after the British were defeated, the American military was disbanded. The idea of a standing professional army was disliked and distrusted. Instead, national defense was entrusted to a citizen militia. The Second Amendment afforded Americans the right to keep and bear arms. Should the need arise, the armed populace would band together in organized militias and defend the United States from attack. Nearly a century later, during the American Civil War, both the Confederacy and the Union implemented mandatory conscription to bolster their armies. Drafted men could hire a substitute to take their place or pay a $300 fee that allowed them to stay home. Those that couldn't afford a substitute could be called to duty. Military officers, often in uniform, directly oversaw the draft process, entering neighborhoods to enforce recruitment. This approach faced significant resistance. The most infamous example occurred in New York City, where major draft riots broke out. The violence resulted in the deaths of more than 100 people. Learning from the mistakes of the Civil War, draft administrators in World War I adopted a different approach. Instead of deploying military officers to recruit or enlist individuals directly, they established civilian draft boards to handle the process and gave it the name the Selective Service. Still, there was a significant resistance to the draft during the First World War. Approximately 300,000 individuals were identified as draft evaders. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, there was a great deal of anger throughout the U.S. Still, enlistment alone couldn't keep up with the manpower needs of the U.S. military.
Members of your government are gathered here in this federal building in Washington to witness the drawing of numbers as provided for in the Selective Service Act of 1940.
World War II saw 50 million men between 18 and 45 register for the draft, with draftees making up about 61% of American troops. During the Vietnam War, the draft became a focal point of protests.
It's really about what we learned in Vietnam, that having a draft army, what they call a citizen army, was one, not fair, and two, not effective. It was basically indentured servitude. I think if you can't get people to volunteer, you shouldn't be fighting the war.
Richard Nixon won the presidential election of 1968 by a narrow margin. He took office in the midst of the Vietnam War and a period of great discontent in the United States. Advising him was Milton Friedman, who would go on to win the Nobel Prize in economics. Friedman had long called for an end to the draft and a return to an all-volunteer military.
The use of compulsion is repugnant to our society except in cases of dire emergency. It is long past time that we return to our basic heritage, got rid of the compulsion in our military service, and return to a voluntary system.
There was immediate pushback, claiming a volunteer-paid military would be akin to mercenaries.
When you try to set up a fighting force like that, you do not want it to ever be a threat to the republic itself, as most militaries have been.
President Nixon made a campaign promise to end the draft. There was a lot of skepticism on what they called the Gates Commission that he called together.
Milton Friedman and Alan Greenspan were on this commission to create an all-volunteer force.
A general who came before us in testimony made the case as to why the mercenary army would be unacceptable to the American culture and indeed for military efficiency.
And so I spoke up and said, General Westmoreland, would you rather command a slave force? And he said, I don't like to hear my drafted soldiers referred to as slaves. And I said, I don't like to hear my patriotic volunteers referred to as mercenaries.
Milton sat there and took his arguments apart piece by piece, never raised his voice.
In any event, General Westmoreland, you are a mercenary general, and I am a mercenary professor. We are served by a mercenary lawyer, we are served by a mercenary doctor.
The general got redder and redder, and at the end of this little set of dissections, the mercenary argument was thoroughly demolished.
And that was the end of the discussion.
Richard Nixon ended the draft in 1972, an election year, and won in a landslide. Henceforth, the U.S. military would be an all-volunteer force. In 1973, it became official. Now, the military was competing for employees with every other business in the country.
The thing about recruiting is we're pretty much like walking billboards.
Hey, tell your friends, come do pull-ups. Depending on how many you do, you'll get an award. 1, 2, 3.
One of the directives that we get is to be engaged in the community.
Hey, real quick, I need you to sign one of these forms.
When they see us, they need to know that like we're available to talk to. They can ask us direct questions about, what we do, what our jobs are.
We do everything, air, land, and sea.
Because a lot of people aren't really informed on what the Marine Corps provides and the opportunities are in it.
Hit me up, man, especially if you're interested in trying to get some information, trying to win a scholarship or something. Hey, we got you, bro.
Yeah, thank you. It's going to take all hands on deck to encourage young people to go into the military.
All right, so this weekend we had the football game. What did we get from that? How was it?
There is a few of the high school students that actually wanted to do pull-ups. A lot of them just wanted to do it just to show off.
We're at the halfway point for the month. Right now we're sitting at 8 of 12, so we need 4 more to make our mission. We'll come out to the schools, going to every football game. I started using social media. Put the face on it so they know it's from me. We need unselfish people who actually want to become a United States Marine. And everything that entails and everything that you're supposed to get from that, they have to be locked in on that, and they have to understand, this is your choice, you wanted this. Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
All right, you too. You can go ahead and just take a seat. A lot of high school kids think that the military is a backup or, a last resort. But it is a selective process. We want to be able to know that you can commit to something and see it through. Well, we're gonna fill out some paperwork. You can take your physical and we'll find out.
Sounds good.
Most of what we spend in the defense budget is spent on the people.
The United States has personnel costs like no other because of our all-volunteer force and the way we treat them.
On average, to have an individual arrive and come through basic training is about $55,000. Where else do you have this type of model? Closest probably thing is how they produce athletes and how they take care of athletes at the collegiate and professional levels. And that is millions of dollars to get the talent, to train the talent, and then to have that talent go out and be a productive soldier. You can't beat that for $55K.
What you have with the all-volunteer force is you have less of an expectation across the country that you'll sign up.
When the GDP is strong, growth is strong, jobs are good, it's very difficult to recruit.
We are competing in the broader labor market. What are the intrinsic and extrinsic rewards of serving in the Army versus doing something else?
Once we turn them into soldiers and they join the fighting force, on average, it costs the taxpayer $140,000 a year. That is benefits, that's medical care, that's taking care of their families, and that's also the basic pay for the job they do.
It's rewarding those who do serve, and they don't have to serve 43 years. They can serve a few years and do their duty and go to college on the GI Bill, as so many have.
Boom, you're locked in, man. You're the Marines.
I do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
During World War II, there were a lot of soldiers and sailors who went AWOL. The numbers are at 50x lower now. Volunteers in today's volunteer military don't run away. They believe in the mission. They're there because they believe in the mission.
I feel like you should be able to choose what you get to do in life. You shouldn't be forced to do anything.
With an all-volunteer force, everybody has their own reason for joining. Nobody was told that, hey, you've got to be here.
There are many ways a nation can choose to defend itself. Mandatory service, voluntary service, a draft, and even no military at all. What would you decide?